Okay, should have gone live. Yep. It's there. Hello to anybody watching. We're going to give it a 2-minute buffer to begin so that everybody can join the live webinar. Okay, let's begin. Hi, everybody. My name is Talin Martirosyan. Thank you so much for tuning in to DataPoint Armenia's first live webinar. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, if anything comes up, feel free to leave them in the comments and we'll get to them at the end. So today we will be interviewing Maga Khachatryan. Maga, thank you so much for being here with us today. Please introduce yourself.
First of all, I'd like to thank DataPoint Armenia for inviting me to this webinar. It's my pleasure to be speaking here. Well, I was born and raised in Yerevan, Armenia. Got my degree in computer sciences and industrial engineering there. My next step was Georgia Tech, Georgia Institute of Technology in the United States in Atlanta, Georgia, where I got my PhD in industrial and systems engineering. After graduation, I worked in a corporate world for a logistics software company. I worked for manufacturing, for agricultural organization. And in every organization, I worked to deliver scalable, advanced analytic solutions to the clients. And I was making cross-organizational and multi-region impact. Somewhere about 2.5 years ago, I decided to become an independent consultant and started my endeavor with the company MagAnalytics, where I worked with large enterprises as well as startups, again, developing advanced analytic solutions. I also like teaching, and I teach at the local universities as an adjunct professor. I taught at the St. Louis University, at the University of Maryland University College, at the University of Missouri St. Louis, and last year I taught at the AEA. So, majorly, I teach operations management and statistics.
That's very interesting. So you just mentioned operations research and statistics. So for those that don't know, could you explain a little bit about what industrial engineering, operations research, and management sciences are, and potentially how it relates to the analytics and work that you do?
Definitely. There is a great deal of overlap in the fields you mentioned, the industrial engineering, operations research, management science. To some extent, for a professional like me, all of these areas blend into one big, nowadays popularized buzzword like advanced analytics, right? Well, if we look at the industrial engineering, it's a general concept, and it refers to applying heuristic models, methods, in order to find efficiencies and other improvements. Predominantly, it's in manufacturing and logistics areas, right? And industrial engineering focuses the studies on applying the probability and statistic methods in business process. Typically, whoever is graduating from the industrial engineering department, their first job is an operations research analyst. That's exactly my path. I graduated from industrial engineering and my first job title was operations research analyst. Now we'll look at the operations research. Operations research is focusing on designing algorithms and models to help businesses make better decisions, right? Now, predominant goal of operations research in comparison with industrial engineering is that we find optimal solutions here, not just marginal improvements, right? The OR employs highly developed methods using advanced tools and techniques to provide analytical power. This is something that no ordinary software or spreadsheet can deliver out of box. So that we need more sophisticated software written to get to the level of optimal solutions. The analytical technologies here include, let's say, simulation, optimization, probability, and statistics. So there are wide ranges of industries that leverage operations research. These include manufacturing, and communications, and transportation, entertainment. You tell me, you name all of these. Finance, military, healthcare, pharmaceuticals. So the most obvious one is, of course, the logistics manufacturing. The less obvious could be healthcare, where we also can solve logistics problems, but also, let's say, we can solve hospital patient experience and a life cycle model. In general, I like playing a game with the audience when I'm making a presentation, asking them a question. Let's say, tell me which area in industry you are in, and I'll tell you what OR problems may rise there, what kind of problems we can solve there. Right. So for the management science, it concerns more of, again, we use scientific methods and ideas to understand what's happening in a business and in managerial problems. And it's highly focusing on business and management.
Very interesting.
Right. So I think your next question was how it relates to analytics, right?
Yes.
Well, both OR and analytics, they blend a lot. They help organizations to turn complex problems into substantial opportunities, right? They transform data into information, like we say, or knowledge, we say, information into insight, insight into action, to help businesses make better decisions. Now, there is this model I want to mention here. It's a very important model for any analytical professional. Many of you might came across those models, but there is Gartner developed this analytical maturity curve that breaks down analytics into phases or stages. So these are descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive, and cognitive. And that exact sequence is actually determining the value it brings to organizations and the level of difficulty of problems and provide solutions. Now, I'll just describe every stage, and I'll tell where we fall. Descriptive analytics is the most primitive form, and it answers the questions: what happened? We're looking at the historical data, and maybe monthly sales, or some web hits numbers, some marketing rates, and we just take an insight of how did we perform, right? What happens? This is the most basic form. The one step further is the diagnostic analytics, which says, okay, whatever happened, but why did that happen? Why my sales all of a sudden raised? What happened? Did I have a promotion on that product? What was there? So what was my behavior, right? That I identify behavior, why it happened. It's very important. These two forms are, majority of companies are operating in these two phases of the analytical maturity. Now, we go to the prescriptive analytics. Now, knowing what might happen, actual predictive is the next one, right? So predictive analytics. We provide, based on data, it provides information of what will happen. Now, basically, I predict my sales. What will happen? What will happen with my sales? It's going to go up, down. What's going to be that magic number? Now we're pulling more complex machine learning and AI processes together, developing algorithms, predicting analytics, those figures, numbers, to help determine what will happen. Now, the next stage is prescriptive analytics. Knowing what happens, knowing if I know what my sales is going to be, that's not enough for me to be successful and competitive. I need to know, okay, what are the course of actions that I need to take for me to make sure that the demand that I predicted, I can realize that demand. I can make sure that the product is there where it's supposed to be in the right time. I deliver right product in the right time, in the right place, right? So this is all about prescriptive analytics. And yeah. So the techniques are optimization and simulation. Definitely, those are the main techniques that we use in this area. My work includes the combination of predictive and prescriptive analytics. Right? So basically combining these two together, we provide better competitive advantage to businesses. Definitely cognitive level is the level with the highest automation. Think of, the question that it answers, it says, well, what's there that I don't know? Think of IoTs, Google Homes and Alexas. These are the higher forms. So there is a long way for us to go there for perfection yet, but we're moving in that direction, definitely. Yep.
Very interesting. As you explained, I mean, it's a very vast field and there's a lot of minute steps. So as an analyst yourself, do you have any examples of how analytics has been used to provide value or insight to your work specifically in maybe the companies you've worked at or MagAnalytics?
Yeah, definitely. Now, I want to say that when we talk about value, there is not a single project that's being initiated without making sure that it has a potential to bring a value, right? So it has potential to bring a value, certain value. And those models that we develop, the solutions that we develop, they are not cheap. So it requires careful considerations where we're investing. Now, having said that, it's very important for us to make sure that the solutions one blink is going to be valuable, not only in monetary way, but also in terms of usefulness. So if the analyst before was using Excel spreadsheets or any other tool before, and now we build this more expensive and complex new tool, but they're not going to use it. It's not valuable for them, then the project is a failure. So every aspect needs to be considered very carefully. It's very important now for the analytics professional to be engaged from the very first stages of the project in the kickoff stages, where we have inception discussion with business for discovery exercise. And it's responsibility of the analytics professional to help shaping the problem by asking critical questions, right? Identifying competing objectives and constraints. And so if we solve wrong problem, nobody needs to have the problem, right? To solve the problem. So now going back, so I wanted to say that for a problem to be successful, we have to start planning ahead, right? Going back to a project that I participated and the value it brings, in terms of value, in a field when I work in a prescriptive environment, many times it's easy to show the value. You can run a POC and show what was before, how you were operating before, and how you will operate later if you follow my recommendation and show the gap. Hopefully it's positive, and hopefully you're showing that there is a monetary advantage if you deploy my models, right? Now, specifically what kind of problems I've worked on. One problem is optimization of flight schedule operations. There is this company, and many of you might be actually knowing what company I'm talking about. There is this company that is taking pictures, flying over the agricultural fields and taking pictures, making image processing of the pictures, basically determining what's the health score of agricultural fields, and making a recommendation to their customers how to manage their fields, whether they need to water more here, there, and all of that. Now, in order for them to take those pictures, there are small aircrafts that are flying above the agricultural fields. Now, how we schedule these aircrafts, right? How we make sure that within a season when agriculture is most active, somewhere maybe in May to November, we take 10, 15 cycles of pictures, and we deploy the least number of planes. We don't want 100 planes. It's a lot of, it's inefficient. How we make sure that all fields pictures are taken, all the pictures of the fields are taken and in a minimal time, right? So there are a lot of objectives: minimizing time, minimizing gasoline, minimizing expenses, and satisfying all kinds of business constraints. So that's one problem, that scheduling aircrafts, small aircrafts for a company. Another problem is I worked in a malpractice insurance company, detecting fraud anomalies. This is the medical malpractice insurance. Now, a lot of times funds are spent where they should not be spent, and a lot of times the claims, insurance claims, take longer than they should. So having a good prediction on what should be the processing time, what kind of funds we need to spend on certain claims, figuring out what's the malpractice or what's not, is very important, so that the insurance company knows where should we stand against what's being done.
Yeah.
That's another thing. This, by the way, in optimization flight, I used the optimization models. Of course, this malpractice insurance, I use predictive models. Another problem is that I've worked is distribution. It's a beverage distribution company, and what they're worried about is they're manufacturing these beverages, and they have to distribute through wholesaler points. Now, what the question is that how we make sure that the right product, because this beverage company has thousands of products, so we need the right mix of products to be in the right time, in the right place, right? So which manufacturing is producing which product, and we're delivering this in trucks. When should my truck leave which manufacturing point, and which wholesaler they should be taking destination these products? So all of these questions need to be answered. And the complexity, of course, that is already complex because of the huge network that we have, but the complexity is also in a solution time, that all the solutions need to be done in a very quick time period, because manufacturing is not stopping. People are still drinking. Distribution wholesalers need these products every day. And the solution needs to be so quick that every night we supply our workers with the schedule so that they can operate. Okay. And another one is very important one I want to mention is this company that is doing in-store digital marketing with attracting right advertisement to the right customers at the right time. So when you see a right in everywhere, whether it's an optimization or the predictive models, so conceptually, they are more or less same problems that we're trying to solve, but there is a commonalities, but the solution approach is different. Right. So there is one more thing I want to mention about the success of the projects. So it's not only about modeling. The projects go beyond analytical models. There is this important aspect that every analyst project success is needing. It's an interaction with other teams. Majorly data engineers, product owners, business managers, organization leads. These are key people that analytics professionals are interacting with. At different stages of the project, you interact with different people. So these are the people who leverage successful execution, right, of your project. So whether data collection, infrastructures, setups, and model deployment, and later on maintenance. So analytic professional cannot exist on its own. There is a huge team that
Yeah. That's very interesting. I think that the example you brought up, the agriculture, is a very interesting one because it's not a field that one would relate to operations research, but the way that you describe kind of connects the two in a very, very interesting and very interesting way. And also another thing is, as you were saying, that one needs to be multidisciplinary, but you can't have that in one person. I think knowledge of the field is also something that is very relevant, and it is ultimately very necessary when you're doing this kind of work. So it's very interesting to hear you talk about those things. Another question that I had was, with all of this that you were discussing, data collection is on the rise. You brought up so many different examples of how your work can be applied to other fields. How do you think this field will be developing in the next, let's say, 20 to 30 years?
Yeah, well, this is a very interesting question. It's very open. Many people might have different ideas, and the field is definitely changing rapidly and in all directions.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe let's talk about promise that advanced analytics is recommending, let's say, predictive and prescriptive analytics. I already touched about this. It's very important for organizations today to leverage predictive and prescriptive analytics. And when organizations want to improve efficiency and optimize performance, these are increasingly important areas, right, to be in. But what I value more in analytics is combining predictive and prescriptive analytics together. They hand in hand, they become disruptors, right? And organizations become analytically mature. So according to statistics, whopping 87% of companies have low analytics maturity, right? So that is very important. I see many companies will start realizing how important to be in analytics. I see that they do realize, but the implementation is not easy. So they'll go there, they'll get there as well. Along with the analytics maturity, it's very valuable to have technological maturity of the company. That's intelligent data preparation, cloud environments, solid data infrastructure, right? To move models from labs to validations, to testing, to production, all of that ensuring the quality of results. Well, I can't not mention what today's are so popular, the deep learnings and the reinforcement learnings and recommendation engines. They're all on a rise, and companies who take advantage and heavily investing in these technologies are becoming really disruptors. And just to look at the data, AI within AI domain for the funding for startups within last 7 years increased from 280 million to $16.5 billion. It's huge. It speaks about the future.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So
very interesting. Going towards more of the entrepreneurship aspect of your career, as you mentioned, you started your own analytics company. So could you describe the process of that, why you did it, what inspired you, where that came from?
Right. So I had the entrepreneurship in my mind from a day when I remember myself becoming professional, more or less a professional, right? It definitely depends on the area that you want to be an entrepreneur. There should be a right time when you enter that field, right? And I always thought about entrepreneurship, professional entrepreneurships, rather than any other. So that was my priority, to become entrepreneur in the area that I am professional. Mm-hmm. This area is definitely demanding and exciting. You need to have a passion, focus, and willingness to take a risk. Well, I do enjoy my time being an entrepreneur, feeling passionate, and it gives me some satisfaction, makes me happier in the long term, right? So with the company, when you own a company, you wear many hats. You are a CEO of the company, you are a CFO of a company, you are a basic developer of the company, you are a marketing manager, all possible necessary job titles you're carrying on your shoulders. As you grow, you can take off them and delegate to someone else. But in the beginning, especially in inception, you are everything in a company. And it takes long hours. It requires long hours to put a lot of efforts into your job, but it's very satisfactory. And also, you get exposed to so many projects. You get to know so many people, and not only like-minded people, but also people who are very different from you. They have very different background, right? And it's about constant learning, constant changing, working on yourself, and expanding your skill set. So it's rewarding.
Very interesting. Thank you. Another thing that we can't ignore, of course, is that you are women in this field. And I just wanted to ask, what has it been like? What has your experience been like as a woman in a male-dominated field? I know that you've been an ambassador at Women in Data Science and president at the Women in Operation Research and Management Science. So could you please tell us about that experience?
Right, definitely. Yes, I'm serving as president of Women in Operations Research and Management Science within Informs organization. And the Informs organization is Institute of Management Science, Operations Research and Management Science. And we're celebrating this year our 25th anniversary. For a data science, Women in Data Science, it's an organization started with the Stanford University and affiliated with the Stanford University, and were part of ambassador. I, along with the other two women, were ambassadors here in St. Louis, and organizing conferences in data science, very successful conferences, regional conferences in St. Louis, and affiliating with the Washington University here. So I am in a field of women of data science and operations research, pretty active in there. But let's look at some statistics. So 57% of professional occupations in US, I can't speak about data in Armenia, but I can talk about, and I don't expect Armenia is very different from that. 57% of professional occupations in United States workforce are held by women. 25% of women are professionals in tech occupations. It's only 25% are women in tech industry. Now, looking at the leadership, only 14% of Fortune 500 companies are women. And that includes CIOs or VPs, executive VPs. Now, there are more CIOs with the name John than women CIOs overall. Or in that fact, there are more people named James than women CIOs. That tells about the glass ceiling, right? Definitely, it might seem that women in tech are slowly coming into parity with men, right? And then, but the statistics shows that the improvement is going very slow. It's not quick enough. That glass ceiling and conscious bias exist in many companies, right?
Yeah.
And women are prevented from receiving promotions because of that, especially in executive ranking.
Yeah.
And right, and it's very hard for many women to pass that entry-level positions. Definitely, there is a struggle for women in tech space. I know many bright, talented, ambitious young women in the field. I'm optimistic about the future. We went a long way to get here. Nevertheless, I feel that corporations need to implement the right policies and programs to make sure the equality is not only on paper, but also in reality. Right? There was huge progress in the last 20 years. That progress was because women started speaking up about equality. And that progress is because women also find allies in men. And so allies in men are very important. After all, this world is created by men. The corporate world is created by men, managed by men, and women have a struggle to become equal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with the what the idea is, why we are raising our voice, is we want to change the stereotypes, right? Refrain from negative perception that stands on the way, right, of gender equality.
Yes,
So that's the biggest goal.
absolutely. So could you maybe give any form of advice to women who maybe was like you, being aspirational but feeling like not as confident to pursue her, goals in this field? Do you have any advice for somebody like that?
Yeah, so again, all depends on what kind of area you are in, but let's talk about analytics professionals, right?
Yeah.
Prepare for getting into, industry, getting into leadership from day one when you get into a workforce. And maybe this is also true for male, because some men also struggle, but it's less percent of men. Majority are women are in this position.
Right.
Now, from a day one, when you start in the workforce, make yourself known, demonstrate your skills, your knowledge, show that you are able to perform. I know many times what we're saying, according to statistics, women have to put more efforts to show that they are able to perform than men. So even we say double, you should, but do it. If that's the world we're living in, do it. Build your network. Network and connections are very important. Make sure you have allies. Again, I'm bringing those allies in men, or not necessarily for men. Men also. That means men have to follow this recipe as well, if we can call this a recipe, and have a passion and a drive, and most importantly, develop resilience. Once fallen, stand up, shake it off, move forward. That's it. You don't have to stand back.
Thank you. This was a very insightful information on this aspect of your life and your career. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. As we come closer to the end of the webinar, I want to ask you some questions more about Armenia and data science and analytics within that field, or that area. Do you see any opportunities in this space, in the analytics space, for Armenia to develop in the future?
Definitely. Short answer is yes, definitely. The longer answer is, well, last year I was in Armenia and was instructor in a data science workshop that was organized by American University of Armenia, my alma mater, of course. I was amazed by the abundance of people interested in data science. Everywhere I was, maybe that's because I was from that field, but also when teaching, there's so many people that were interested in getting into a field. So students that were there, some were already pretty deep in profession. Some others wanted to start this data science, even from backgrounds coming from political science backgrounds. They just wanted to change and become data scientists. So there is an interest. There is a big interest in population. If there is a big interest in population, that means there is a need. And in the beginning of the workshop there, I was asking people where they work, and I was again amazed how many companies are in this area in the field of data science, companies that I haven't heard from here, definitely. But they're there, they're existing. And they are existing and sending the employees for a workshop. That tells a lot, right? So what kind of interest is in Armenia? Now, having so many companies, outsourcing software companies, right, going to Armenia, we have a potential not only build the products, but also infuse smart technologies into them. That's very important. And the biggest thing that I see for analytics in Armenia right now is within government. The government can leverage operations research in military logistics, right? This is how OR as a field actually started. It started with I don't want to say exact year, but during the war times as for military, and then it expanded into other industries. let's say if within Armenia's military, drone technologies, image recognitions, and these logistics distributions are very important for Armenia's military. I think these are the big potentials. Yeah.
That's great to hear. And as a final closing question, what do you think makes a successful data scientist through your experience and in your words?
Yeah, definitely. One of the key skills for analytic professional is to have analytical mindset and be an ultimate communicator. I think this is the key now. One can solve best problem in the most elegant manner. However, if the person is not able to communicate, to sell the product, the genius tool is going to sit on a shelf forever. Right? Analytical professionals many times are falling into the trap, we call it curse of knowledge, right? They assume others have a background and understand what they're talking about, but apparently everyone is confused and standing in front of them and they don't know what people are talking, right? Analytics professionals are talking. So it's very important to be able to speak the value and impact and importance of the developed solution and be able to speak business language, to speak in the simplest terms what you're doing and why it's important. Definitely the technical skills and strong analytical foundation are those two are the basic requirements, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what expected and required from you for a bare minimum.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Magajan. This was a very, very insightful talk that we had. We have a couple questions from the comments. We won't have time to go through them all, but I'll pick the first couple that we got. So somebody asks, what was your biggest challenge that you overcame when switching from the corporate to entrepreneurship field?
That goes back into me being an analytics professional. Now, within analytics professional, majority of times I focus on my development. The personal development is fine, but developing my models. And all of a sudden, the world is mine. And then all of a sudden, I am the person who communicates with business. I'm the person who have to market, and the marketing is mine. And I've never done marketing. But in the very beginning of my business, I have to do it on my own. So learning new skills is the biggest challenge. Skills that I've never encountered in my other jobs is the biggest challenge.
Mm. Yeah, I think the team at DataPoint can also relate to that very heavily. Right. And let's ask one final question. For those interested in starting to break into analytics and data science consulting, what advice would you recommend?
We live in a very good times, in a times when the internet has abundance of information. Start taking classes. That's how actually, even though I got a proper training in universities for my PhDs, masters, and bachelors, still every day I learn new tools, new techniques. And we already talked, the analytics is progressing in such a rapid, fast manner. Take classes. Start from basic. There are Coursera's, edX's. There are so many courses, so many areas that you can take classes, get into forums, attend webinars. So be everywhere, of course. Thinking about work-life balance, that's like a big thing, but just try to be exposed to as many things as you can. Follow key people in data science on LinkedIn. Be very engaged, very active in LinkedIn. And the courses, course areas, start with Andrew Enge's courses. They are very good ones to get into the area. So, and even I know MIT has so many courses online for free for people to, to learn a lot of techniques, even to start from the basics math. Everywhere is there.
Yeah, everywhere is data. Very well said. Magajan, thank you so much. This was a very enjoyable conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here. And I can answer many questions that are posted on Facebook later on. Slowly, I'll go through them.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.